Welcome to the Tech Matchmaker podcast. I'm Gina Gibson, founder of Think Forward, where we matched organizations to customer experience technology based on your requirements, your budget, and your team. We are back with another customer spotlight, sharing the good, the lessons, and the wow factor. Joining me today is Kristen Main from Experian and Luc Dallaire from Zenarate. Kristen, this is your first time on the show, so welcome.
Thank you so much.
Luc, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back.
So we're going to walk through the whole story, where things started to break down, what the fix actually looked like, and what came out on the other side. And I'll just say up front, everybody, you're going to love the ending. So Kristen, why don't you set the stage for us and tell the audience what Experian does and what your role there is?
Sure. So I am with Experian Insurance Services. So I run an insurance agency for Experian. So I have sales, service, sales operations, employees that we've scaled and hired a lot over the last couple of years. And we're there to take care of our customer needs, whatever that may be, whether it's a new business policy or servicing an existing policy.
Excellent. And Luc, can you do a brief reintroduction for anybody who missed your last episode?
Sure, yeah. I'm Luc Dallaire. I lead the global sales team at Zenarate. We're an AI simulation training platform, and I'll tell you more about that's what you know us as, but we've got a lot more that we're doing now, which just adds to the value of our partnership with our clients and our customers.
Excellent. So Kristen, let's go back to before you and I were engaged and Think Forward was part of it. Take us back to what was actually happening on the ground. Like what was breaking down and who was feeling it?
Yeah, so when I started in my role, we didn't really have a training team. So very small at the time. So I hired a couple of trainers and really it was PowerPoints and, in the virtual classroom, so to speak, no training environment. So everything we wanted to train on had to be done in production, which we all know it's really difficult to do. You don't want to do it, but we just didn't really have any choice. So um, and then we decided to really scale our team and did a lot of hiring. So we had just a really immediate need for resources with managing all of that scaling with such a small team. We needed a training solution and we just didn't have one at the time. And so that's kind of where we started was obviously identifying a huge opportunity from resources, timing, all of the things, and then also the employee experience, right? You're hiring new people, you're bringing them into a company, especially as Experian, and then if you have a training experience that is just does not feel cutting edge, it really can impact attrition and new employee kind of perspective on the job they just took. So a lot of opportunity when we first began.
And what made you decide to bring in a tech matchmaker or an advisor versus handling the vendor search yourself?
Sure. I was really new to that. So it was funny how I stumbled upon it. If you recall, we met up at just a small gathering that I got invited to. And honestly, I didn't even know the service existed. And in having that conversation with you, I was so excited and relieved, really, because, I have a 300-person operation to run and vetting vendors is not really my day job and not something I'm very experienced at. And so it was a daunting task for me of how to find the right solution. And so meeting you and having that conversation and understanding the service that you could provide, I was absolutely excited and so glad that I had that opportunity to come to that little gathering and meet you. And obviously now here we are.
Yeah. And we had a little bit of a different approach because we got together. I think we were at your campus and we kind of walked through your entire business process, right? Like from the minute a call comes and even before that, where your lists come from, how your contact center runs. And we really did it without any particular focus, just kind of looking at everything and understanding what works, what doesn't work. And then we really kind of narrowed it down to a specific program or problem. Sorry. So with that in mind, like did going through that process, what was that like for you? Did it help? Did it make you, oh, I forgot about us doing this? Or did it highlight any options for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think really honestly the goal was to find some options, right, that were right for us. And I feel like I really appreciated that you didn't come to the table with something already in mind. Your first step was, let me learn about your business and what you do and understand. And I think that really allowed you then to bring us some vendor options that were, ones that would work and not waste anyone's time, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a very lengthy process. It takes a lot of time to look at vendors. And so for me personally, I just felt heard and I felt like it was a really seamless process because you took the time first to just understand what do you even do? Because I can tell you high level, we have a call center, it's virtual, I can tell you all those things, but to really understand how we're interacting with our customers and the type of work that we're doing, I think it's a lot harder for you to come to the table with some really viable options. So for me, it felt really, really great to have that time to really share with you and give you the opportunity to learn about our business before we stepped into, okay, here are some great solutions for you.
Excellent. And Luc, from the vendor side, you came into this through a matchmaker versus a direct sale or a typical outreach. How was the quality of that conversation different than your usual sales process?
I mean, it's remarkably different, right? Like you just described all the work you did before you ever reached out to anybody. So for us, whenever we work with a matchmaker, especially one like Gina, we know the entire groundwork has been done, and if we're being contacted to potentially meet with somebody and provide more information, we know there's a real opportunity to add value to Kristen and her team in this example. So I mean, we dove straight in. We didn't really have to do much discovery and figuring out what was what. I think Kristen had an idea of what we were going to be, and we added value to the conversation. We got straight into consultation and sort of trying to find the right answers to align the solution to the problems you all just described. So it jumps the conversation forward quite a bit, and it makes it to where we have a really clear understanding of where we can add value to the team and how we can add value to the team. And it helps shape and focus the conversation versus starting from scratch.
And Kristen, once you met with Zenarate, what made you say yes?
Really was looking for something that provided the simulations. That was key, the practice, because we have both phone and also back office reps. So we have some manual work that, not having the ability to give our employees the opportunity to practice was a real blocker for us in getting them up to speed on the job that we were asking them to do. And so for me, just seeing the simulation software, the ease at which you can set those up, right? Having that training that they provide for your learning and development team to become experts on how to build it themselves. So not just throwing them to the wolves, giving them the opportunity to have someone walk them through, but then also learning how to implement it themselves, right? And also the reporting, just the UI. I think overall it was clean, it was modern, and it really met the needs that we had and what we were trying to solve for in getting a vendor to work with us.
Excellent. And let's just pop to the contracting phase for a minute because sometimes that's where the momentum kind of stalls out.
It's the fun
Did
part.
having clear deliverables upfront change how that process went? Because if I remember properly, it went fairly smoothly in the contracting.
Yeah, I mean, for me overall, I will tell you, Gina, your help in kind of building a business case and an ROI, you built this really fantastic spreadsheet that really laid it all out. It made it so much easier for me then to articulate to my senior leadership and my procurement team and where I needed to go in order to kind of launch into that contract process. So, and I've leveraged that document multiple times. So, that was just a huge benefit to have that at my fingertips and to really show like what we were asking for, but the impact it would have on our organization. So I really appreciated that. And I feel like that really gave us that starting off point. The other thing I know for our company, our procurement team really likes us to compare multiple vendors. And so not only did I have the one we had selected, but I also had the groundwork there for the ones that we didn't select. So that was really helpful too, to have all that ready to go to share with them as we moved into kind of that negotiation phase.
Excellent. And then from signature, implementation and delivery. So implementation is where we find out if the yeses, we can do this, actually come to fruition and get stress tested. So give me the honest take. What went smoothly?
I think that overall, the feedback, because I actually didn't implement, right? I have a learning and development manager and trainers that kind of did the heavy lifting, but was staying in touch with them on a regular basis. And the feedback I was hearing was they felt supported. They felt like if they had questions, they were answered. They went through the training so that they use the training. What I think is really neat is that the training that they go through to learn how to build simulations and to use the product uses the training. So you're actually kind of doing double duty there, where you're
Yeah.
learning as you go, but you're also creating. So overall, really great feedback from the team. I would say the only challenge was really on our own side, that it's really difficult as you're scaling and growing and have hiring happening, how to fit in, that pause to get familiar with the product, right? And start to build your simulations. And so the friction we had was really our own, making, because we had a class that was about to start, or we had a class that was going, but then we also were trying to learn the product and build the simulation. So there was a little bit of delay at times, but that was really on our own side of our resourcing and availability, because we were trying to hire and onboard while we're also trying to create the training. So we had to use the old training, right? And then transition to the new. And then, so that piece of it, but that would be just my advice overall, is try to fit it into your training calendar in a way that allows you the time and focus that you need, because you really can't do both at the same time. You really need to carve out a dedicated resource and time to build your simulations so that you can then implement it completely in the class, not parts and that type of thing.
And I don't imagine you're on your own on that, Luke. I would imagine most of your customers run into that same kind of scenario, do they?
Yeah, it's true, and I'll say that Kristen mentioned a couple of things. She probably doesn't even realize some of the things she just said is why it actually went so smoothly. There's the people who have conversations with us, like Kristen, who say yes and they go through and they purchase the solution. A lot of times they don't stay as close with their team or set the same expectations as they have with their teams. And so Kristen was in the initial strategy sessions, making sure her team had the right understanding of what their task and what their marching orders were. And therefore we also knew what those were, and her ability to stay connected. She didn't do the implementation, but she talked about staying connected with her team. It doesn't always happen. It is definitely the more whoever makes those decisions stays connected with the people who are implementing, the better everybody makes sure that we're not wasting time. We're not redoing anything because we've gotten off course for one reason or another. Um, and I think Kristen's team did a really good job communicating the sort of like, hey guys, we need to like give us an extra week because X, Y, and Z is the case. We have a pretty flexible implementation plan on purpose. We like to say we give you the bucket of fish and we show you how to use the fishing pole. So you get to sort of have the balance of both of those things. And, the Zenarate Academy, which is what Kristen mentioned, it can be done in, 15 to 20 hours. But we usually say do it over 6 or 7 weeks. Don't do it all in one place, because we know people have day jobs and other things. To the extent you can fit it in a place where somebody's brain isn't completely scattered, you get you get the most out of the tool. But we also have worked with the entire spectrum all the way through to make sure that we can support, and we sort of slide those things in whatever time frame is the most reasonable for our customers. That's why we always start the implementations with like a kickoff, and then we do a strategy session where we have those conversations and we kind of walk through the expectations of everybody and the goals of what we're trying to accomplish in this sort of focused implementation. And based off of that, everybody agrees like this is the schedule we're going to start with, and if we need to flex it, we will. And those look very different. We have a standard approach, but they definitely look different based off of hiring class times you might be targeting, or, whatever, countless situations that come up.
So let's get to the juicy stuff and talk about results. And let's get as specific as we can, because I know a lot of people that are evaluating, when they hear numbers like 150 times ROI, they're like, yeah, whatever, that's not believable. So, Kristen, can you talk to us a little bit about what you're measuring and what your numbers actually look like so far?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing right out of the gate is just the ability to get production out of your team. In particular, I'll kind of focus on the sales team because we do a lot of hiring of sales agents. And, prior to using the system, it would take right around probably 6 weeks before they were handling live interactions because the training took so long. We were able to cut that down to really 4 weeks. So you're cutting 2 weeks off of your training, and actually I would say even in week 2 and 3, we would already start to get them into live, maybe not by themselves, but we were able to more quickly get them into that role, right? Doing the work, so that was huge. One, it gives them more practice, but also it's getting more production out of our sales team, right? Quicker. And then in addition to that, we saw about a 10% lift in month one production, going from our old to the new training. And I would say probably about 50K in premium additionally that we got out of this team right in that first class that we put through it. So that was huge for us, right? It makes the agents feel good. They're selling, they're starting to see the impact of the work they're doing. And then obviously for us as a business, we're seeing more premium written, right? We're seeing more policies sold. So to get that in month one was significant. But I just want to share real quickly because I think we talk a lot about new hire. We've kind of scaled back on our hiring, and so now we've been able to use the system to do some tenured rep training. So one example, we had a new product we wanted to sell. It's complicated. We created this new team. We were able to build out those simulations, get a training pulled together, train those reps in like 3 to 5 days. And in the first month, we increased our sales 81% and increased our premium 70% from this initiative that
Oh,
kind of came up out of nowhere. So I think there's a benefit to new hire and onboarding, and I think that's where a lot of learning and development teams focus. But don't forget, you have your existing employees, and as you want to launch new products, you want to maybe do some more, focused coaching and training. You can use the system for that as well, and we've really seen huge benefits from that in our bottom line.
Those are crazy impressive numbers. Luc, is that
yeah.
typical to see an improvement in month one? Like, is Kristen an
Um,
exception to the rule, or is that kind of
no,
the
I
norm?
mean, Kristen is exceptional.
Yeah.
So let's not get that twisted. But actually, like, it is very common to see it, and it depends on the metric too, right? There are metrics that take a little longer. What we typically see, and honestly, we don't typically see shortening the training time that quickly. So Kristen is a little bit of an exception in that you do see, 25, sometimes 50+% reduction in the time it takes to train somebody, which is really a speed to proficiency metric if you think about that. Most of the time, people um, keep this training time the same, but the people are just so much better because they've gotten all of that practice and repetition if they've designed it, in the way that we've sort of shared best practices for. And then as people graduate, leaving training, oftentimes their handle times are better, their quality scores are better. Some of the productivity metrics like that and the quality metrics that are you immediately impact through practice. Things like CSAT and other things that take a while to get metrics back from because it's just the measurement tail, they take a little longer. We often see attrition improvements as well, sometimes right away, sometimes very closely thereafter. So there's sort of different phases of what you start to see. And what you typically also see is there's that first cohort when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing certain needles start to move, some of them maybe more than we even expected. Then you learn and you're like, now I'm going to do this as my phase two. And then so you sort of continuously iterate as you learn and as you augment. And the more you do that, that's where we typically start seeing people be like, hey, you know what? I don't need to spend an entire day on this system. I can do an hour of, overview and practice, and we can keep on going. And that's when people can start to shave back. those types of things. And what we often start to see is that, you can start to save labor costs from that, because if you say, I want to be productive here and I needed to hire you here, well, now I can hire you here and get you productive at the same time. And that's a lot of savings just on unproductive wages from the training time that goes. I'm sure that was part of your calculus there, Kristen, but those are all things that we definitely see. So Kristen's team, I mean, the results are incredible. We see a wide range of results. She's certainly not like, she's a average or above average in those initial results. Um, and a lot of that is a testament to her team. She really structured her team well, really. I mean, they did, I think one thing that's really important in getting those types of results is the co-investment from both teams early on. Like our job at Zenarate is to implement. So, right, we will build the first cohort and batches of different simulations and things, and we'll provide best practices. But, you can lead a horse to water, but if you've got the co-investment, Kristen's team, all of them went through Zenarate Academy the entire way through and really did the work to learn the tools and the concepts, because this isn't just a tech platform. There's sort of a conceptual evolution of L&D that is intuitive to people who know learning, but isn't intuitive because we haven't had the tech to enable it before. When you learn those types of things, it really does accelerate those month one numbers like Kristen's team did. So in that sense, her team did a really great job grasping those concepts.
Yeah, and I love, Kristen, the highlight that the employee experience improved, right? As well as your customer experience, which of course then improved your bottom line, right?
Yep,
So knowing that your
absolutely.
agents, lower turnover, that kind of thing, that they were enjoying it more because they're able to be productive right away. That's some really impressive statistics there.
We even had a rehire. It's funny, and she went through the old experience. She came back and went through, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so much better." So we even had like an actual
That's
person
great.
that experienced both, and then some of our other agents were like, "Can we go through the training? We heard it's really." So it just created this buzz around it. So we have actually used our new hire training to retrain those who are struggling. So again, performance improvement plans and things of that nature, you now have a way to invest not just in coaching, but in some training, but it doesn't take time away from the supervisor, right? The supervisor can just say, I want you to go through this module. They can schedule the rep to do it. They complete it. We can see the score. There's just so many benefits to more of that kind of self-service coaching and training that your tenured folks can go through as well.
And just to point on that, and I'm not sure if you guys have implemented it at Experian, but Luc, I know part of the capability of Zenarate is you can take in from the auto QM scoring and say, like, if an agent is continually, maybe not living up to expectations on these couple of questions, the next time they log into work, that training can be automatically served up to that agent. And maybe talk about that feature functionality a little bit,
Yeah.
because I know that's one of the best things, I think, talking about automation that we can
Yeah.
do to make it easier.
In the early days, we used to get asked that question all the time. Oh my gosh, can you do this type of like coaching and scoring and rating on real calls? And so we built that. It's not new to Zenarate. We've had it for a couple of years, but what we're seeing more and more every day in some of our on our roadmap is we're integrating all of those things together. We're really creating a single integrated suite of solutions that allows us to fundamentally just augment and optimize performance. And so we've got the training stuff that we're talking about here. Yes, we have a solution that analyzes call recordings and can score them automatically and sort of take the place of human scoring or augment it or whatever. And
Mhm.
then the thing that we do that's really unique that you just described, Gina, is we can then take that information and identify the skill gaps based off of those things and say, well, we've got these simulations. We can automatically curate a upskilling program based off of something that's very different maybe for Luc versus Gina versus Kristen,
Mhm.
automatically deliver that. And then now, instead of a manager having to train and coach and be an analyst and a trainer and all the things that managers we very well know, not all of them have the same level of skill in those things.
Mhm.
We can automatically be the analyst for them. We can automatically assign the upskilling. We can automatically deliver the upskilling, and we can simply provide that reporting and data back to them that says, yeah, you know what? I saw that, Luc struggled here. He did some practice. His KPI, his performance numbers in practice went up, and I can actually see his quality scores have already started to improve because of X, Y, or Z. The manager didn't have to do anything. except for
It's
just manage and maintain. So there's even more. We've got this whole AI agent thing now, but that capability that's really central to driving performance across the team, tenured agents, new hire training, everybody in between. It's a really powerful solution.
excellent. And Kristen, I know it sounds like everything went really well. Is there anything that you wish you would have known or done differently going in?
And I think the scheduling piece of it of when, you don't always have control over the contracting process, right? And when that's going to happen. Obviously, it took way longer than I would have liked. We know I had some challenges. So I think, the timing of that, maybe we would change a little bit. But again, you don't always have the opportunity to do that. I think we made it work. I think the other thing too is because of that. So some of the features Luke's talking about, we've had to really take an iterative approach. And even that first class we did, we were only able to really focus on a few key simulations and get that out. So, again, I think having a dedicated amount of time to maybe get a little bit more content done and ready to go for that first class would have been better. But I think we made it work and we were able to quickly improve in that next one. But I definitely think the timing, the schedule, the planning piece of it, I would probably do that a little bit different. But to your point, overall, I feel like it went really, really well and we got great results from it.
Excellent. And Luc, you've talked about how Kristen kept her team engaged and was very communicative with her team, and that the team was, roll up their sleeves and dive in. Was there anything else that Experian did as a customer that made your job easier and the outcome better?
Um, I mean, yes, she did a lot of things. I do think, I mean, I can't understate the communication and the level setting that her team had to have. That was so important. I think the other thing that was really whether this, I think this was a mix of Kristen and the team members that she had charged with driving the solution, is there was one person who was the point of contact for our implementation team. And I think it is really important, especially if you have a bigger team or if you've got multiple things, having sort of an owner of it that helps to streamline communication is really important. The other thing I think that Krista's team did really well is there was a couple of people that were responsible for building simulations, and I think each of them had different skill sets, and so she aligned their skill sets. Like one, I think, is focused on the software simulations primarily because maybe they're a little more technical in nature, and one is focused more on the conversation simulations. And so being able to align the capabilities of the team with the different types of features and functionality within the tool was really valuable too. We certainly have people that become super admins and they learn all areas of the platform, and that's a capability for them, but not everybody, does it super quickly. And so even just starting in that way and then growing from there and specializing allows them to be more, just do more throughput of simulations if you're getting the hang of those things. That was really important. The other thing I think I'll say too is Kristen really helped out because we have multiple business units actually at Experian, and we had people, and I was like, "Oh, go talk to Kristen." And Kristen, I think, probably pulled out your spreadsheet, Gina, and said, "Here, use the same information." And we have people in EMEA and overseas in the UK and people groups all over the world that have come and in their willingness to share their lessons learned, their best practices, their results as well. They helped their peers bring that in from a procurement perspective, and I think they're all finding value in all the things. So that was also just for me, like selfishly, it made my job a lot easier with her being able to share those things. But it just spoke to the collective success that Experian wants together as a unit, which I thought was really cool.
And it's interesting you bring it up, Luc, because for me, from the outside in or not as involved in the day to day and the deployment, it was one of the surest signs of a good match when your champion internally is selling for you, right? Like she became your internal
Yes.
advocate. So yeah, it was definitely okay, this one worked, right? It's
Yeah.
definitely. And Kristen, I know you talked a little bit before about what you're doing, like how you're evolving the use of the tool, and the numbers around that are incredible. Do you have anything else on the roadmap as far as like what's the next phase of how you're going to use Zenarate?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's just anything that comes our way, we're always thinking about how do we use Zenarate to create a training for that. And we're even taking it outside of, so you've got product releases, right? You have more of that technical training that I think we're all very familiar with. We're now going into like soft skills training. So we're even using the simulation as we think about our NPS or our CSAT scores. We want to improve in a certain area, right? So we can create those types of simulations that are far more focused on the customer experience and less about just the technical. And I also think for the agents to have a training that's really focused on that, because we expect them to demonstrate that, right? Even when they're doing a technical call. But I think when you're in a training that's just focused on your soft skills, your word choice, your customization of the experience for that particular individual, right? We really push that. And I think that has been a really new way for us to use the training software. And I'm excited to see what my team can continue to come up with and be creative in how do we continue to use it. I also want to throw out, we're a continuous improvement organization. That's another way, continuous improvement, Six Sigma, those types of things. We're also able to use it for those types of training and teaching problem solving. So it can just go to anything you need to where you need to deploy some type of training or learning to your team. It's available to use it however you see fit, and I think that's what makes it so useful.
Love
Yeah, and
that.
think about the regulatory environment that Experian has to be in. I'm
Yeah.
sure laws and rules and scripts and things change all the time. We have, financial services and healthcare and stuff that we support in a large way. Something like a new script, get something built, send it out, and make sure that every single person has demonstrated and confirmed their proficiency in that new regulation, so that you don't have any penalties before it even comes up down the pike. There's the risk mitigation in even just something
Absolutely.
as seemingly transactional as that. You're not taking people off the floor. You're not doing all the things that you used to do. You're giving it to them in bite-sized pieces. And one thing that I harp on a lot, because I came from the workforce management world, is what that does to your service levels, where you're not taking groups of 10, 20, 30 people at a time and needing a classroom and shoving them in there, and you're seeing these huge dips in service level or speed to answer, where you can do onesie twosies throughout the day or the weeks or however long you have. It just smooths out the negative impacts that you have to do in those instances, and then it even allows you, if you've got net staffing surpluses anywhere, to actually put in 15, 30, 45 minutes of this type of practice with no negative impact whatsoever. So the ability to get super tactical there, um, it makes me really excited. Those are the things that make me excited as
I
a
love
former
it.
operator.
Luc, what does the roadmap look like for Zenarate, and how do your customers like Experian? How do they help shape your roadmap?
Um, two good questions. One, I'll answer the second one first because it's the easiest. I mean, there's a lot of them that, just like Kristen said, they're like, I have an idea. Could we do this? And maybe there's like one thing we need to add to really do it well. Cool. There you go. Even the solution that does part AQM, AQA, we had many requests early days that again, that came from that, and it kind of spurred us to simply build. So there's a lot of that comes, and we're still a nimble enough organization to do those things. And it's not a 5-year down the roadmap thing. It's like, hey, in 6 months, you might have something like this or less, depending on what it is. So there's a lot of idea creation especially from organizations like Kristen and her team that really do get it and understand sort of the unlimited potential. It really is limited by creativity at this point based off of the functionality of the tool. So if you can start getting super creative, we can be creative alongside. Um, the roadmap is it takes what I talked about a second ago when I talked about sort of driving performance, and really like blows it out all the way. So you think about the workforce of today and the workforce of tomorrow, right? There's probably a much more of a blending of human and AI agents and all these. We've heard that conversation all over the place. We actually agree. We think that there will be, things that can be automated transactionally that are AI is really, really good at. And then there are the ones that are just complex or require that human intervention. We've built a solution set that actually supports all of that. 2 AI agents that actually manage the transactions, and our training simulations that train humans. Our analyze solution that I talked about a second ago, you can use the same business rules and brand requirements to assess the quality of humans or AI in the same rubric, and then you can upskill them automatically through the different phases. So there's this sort of collection of data around performance, regardless of the type of employee that does the work, that allows you to have sort of a unprecedented view of performance and an unprecedented ability to upskill and close skill gaps and improve performance in that regard. So those are all things that I would say are both on the roadmap and already here. So there's just a lot of exciting stuff. Our website's been updated recently. We're going to continue to do some more stuff there, but we're going to have a lot more to share, Gina, after our summit next month, where we
Excellent.
share a lot more of this stuff.
Perfect. And do either of you have anything else you'd like to add about the process, the technology, or the overall experience before we wrap up?
I just say, this is an example where partnership, as Luke mentioned, communication, and just that relationship, I think it's so refreshing, right, to work with a business partner where we all have a common purpose. We're all working towards the same thing. And I think when you have that type of relationship, the results come with it, right? So we're definitely working together as partners and have that common purpose. And I just think that makes all the difference in the world. And so it's been so much fun to work with Luc and his team. And I just say the sky's the limit and what you can do when you partner and collaborate effectively.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that. And I'll also say, from my perspective too, Gina, I know one of your philosophies is, and you described it very early on in this conversation, where you don't have preconceived notions necessarily. You really do work with your clients to understand their business and then help them figure out what's unique to them. We take a very similar approach, which is why we are so aligned, is I don't approach a conversation as a sales conversation. To me, is there value that we can add? Does our solution add that value? I might share thoughts. I mean, when I do keynotes and other presentations, I don't often, I just add value. We teach, we share. And to the extent people would like to leverage our solution to do that, we obviously appreciate it. But when we're all collectively aligned on how can we maximize value, I think Gina brought that to the table. Kristen, hopefully I'm speaking for you. She brought that to both of us. And I think that she was able to share that across the board. So I think that the conversations were we all had a shared goal. I think that's
Yeah.
that's the big key, is we all had a shared goal, and Gina had the foresight to identify a solution that could add the right value.
Excellent. Well, Kristen and Luc, thank you both so much for your time today. I know the audience is going to find this valuable. And I think, technology decisions are in this space are complicated enough because it's a very busy space. There's a lot of different options. So I am glad that this match worked out well. So until next time, keep matching smart and thinking forward.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.